I've had a problem since coming to Creekside. I found out that the congregation expects me to have a sermon down on paper by the night before today. So I was up last night, 11 o'clock, getting something down on paper, knowing full well I have an hour between home and here, and things change in an hour. So, but what I did, if you want to, and I've got to skip a lot of what I put in that because there won't be time today. In fact, I anticipated this might happen. And so I've already entitled next Sunday's sermon. It's called Life-Giving People, the sequel. That's just what it's going to be. I did bring a bag along, so I've got lots to bring with you today. I've asked these three young people in front to pass, well, first of all, take out my Pepsi. No. Here's one for you, Joel and Maddie. People aren't allowed to eat these yet. Just take it for now. Okay. It's a Midnight Milky Way mini, okay? And then I have this Pepsi. It's what's called the throwback version, made with real sugar. This is the last time you'll ever see me with a Pepsi in worship. I don't drink Pepsi. But Pepsi fit in well with the theme for today, life-giving people, because Pepsi has mastered the art of using life in its sloganing. I think you can remember some of them if you're as old as I am anyway. Back in the 70s, there was one called, You've Got a Lot to Live, and Pepsi's Got a Lot to Give. And there was one, Come alive, you're in the Pepsi generation. And another one, Pepsi has your taste for life. And right now, it is live for now. All having to do with life. Now, Frederick Buechner once said that if whatever your vocation is from God, it probably lies at the intersection of two things. The road that says, what gives you gladness, and the road that says, what causes the world pain. What gives you pain? Causes the world pain. That's where your vocation lies, somewhere around that intersection. If someone delights in writing jingles for Pepsi, they've probably satisfied the first criteria, but probably not the second one, dealing with the world's pain. On the other hand, I've got a Mother's Day story for you. It was Mother's Day, and a mother went to her son's room and said, "Get up, it's time for you to go to church." And he said, "I don't want to go." And she said, "Give me some good reasons why not." And he said, "Because I'm tired. Because I don't like those people very much. And they don't like me either. Now, you give me a couple reasons why I should go." And she said, "Because I'm your mother. You're 40 years old. And you're the pastor." So, now, that person, maybe he found the right calling partly, but not the delight part. He wasn't delighting in his work. This morning I want to, first of all, just run by you a trivial question. And that is, do you know whether the Protestant denomination that the creator of Pepsi belonged to was Brethren, Mennonite, Calvinist, or Episcopalian? That's the question. Any clues? Well, really, Brethren is a good choice because one of the early owners of the CEOs of the company was a progressive churchman whose last name was Mack. So Brethren would be a good option, right? The place where Pepsi was created was a town called New Bern, North Carolina, which was settled by Swiss immigrants, like the Swiss immigrants that settled Bern, Indiana, that's basically a Mennonite community. So Mennonite would be a good choice. Calvinist would be a great choice because anybody who creates a drink that tastes good, is sugared heavily, claims to help digestion, and gives you a boost in energy has got to be destined to be a keeper, right? And then finally, Episcopal is a good choice because if you rearrange the words of Pepsi-Cola, you get Episcopal. Anyway, those are just various options for the creator of Pepsi-Cola. Actually, he was a Calvinist, Presbyterian. But that's neither here nor there. Today, I want to talk about what really gives us life. St. Irenaeus says that the glory of God is a human being fully alive. What does that mean? Is anyone here, like me, sometimes feel you're only partly alive? Maybe even a small part? Well, I do know this. There are some things that make me feel more alive than others. I'm thinking about Creekside game night. Yes, Marianne, you and I had some good laughs, didn't we, Friday night? I went to game night in April. And I went because I wanted to make some connections with some different people. And I was told, just bring a game along. And so I have a niece in California who was visiting us last summer. And then my son visited her in San Francisco later in the fall. And he came back and told me a comment she had about me. And this was very simple. She said to my son, "Brian, your dad is a connector," in quotes. I'm a connector. So why do I go to game night? To connect with people. And the April Friday night event, Paulette and I took connector games. Like, it's called Family Stories. And Chicken Soup for the Soul. Well, we get there, and we find out the game of choice at the Creekside game night is, see, everybody knows. I didn't know this, but that's fine. I like euchre. I play cards. And so I had a good time playing with different people euchre that first night in April. Well, last Friday night, Paulette and I went back. And we left our connector games at home because we connected fine the month before. Only we get there, and guess what I find out? It's not just euchre, it's speed euchre. Now, a person can opt out of euchre and play something else, but I thought, well, I'll yield to this. And I wasn't playing the game long when I heard someone say, "Euchre!" I thought, who's being called a mean, contemptible person? Euchre. Then I realized, no, they're calling euchre. Game over. shift tables, shift partners. The whole evening left me, I sensed that it was, comparison to the month before, it was intense, it was focused, it was fast-paced. In here, I was tense, I was unfocused, and I wanted things to slow down. I hardly had time to go get a snack at the snack table, let alone to graze at the snack pasture. That wasn't even an option. So I, after it was all said and done, I felt kind of breathless. I hardly had time to take a breath to make a connection. Now, so the connector, Doug, wasn't coming alive very much, although Mary Ann and I, we had some good connections over some stuff that was going on, and could have some guffaws and some laughs about that. And after the evening had wound down and people were kind of getting ready to go home, then we had time to talk about some things. Being connected is what gives me life. I know it may be very well different for many of you. But it's important to come to understand, what is it that gives us life? A man named Howard Thurman once said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and then do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Now today, we have in John 10, verses 1 through 10, a group of verses that have a couple of tiers possible. Not T-E-A-R-S, but T-I-E-R-S. One is for Rosanna, Elizabeth, me, others who are leaders in the congregation. Basically, are we in communion with the gatekeeper? Do we know the sheep at Creekside by name? Do we know their personalities? Do we know their stories, their experiences, what causes them pain, what their losses are? And thirdly, are we imparting abundant life or not? Or is what I'm doing inspiring of joylessness or deadness? So we pastors and other leaders need to deal with those three things. Being connected to the gatekeeper, being connected to our people, being connected to our real call. But it also has to do with just us as folks. Are you in a relationship of communion with the gatekeeper? Do you know the other sheep in this pen? And are you imparting life abundant, or life to the full? That's the question that all of us are invited to consider this morning. As we are here gathered this morning, there are people in Nigeria and many other places, not just Nigeria, who are in anguish. In fact, I was thinking of, when I read, thank you, by the way, for those notes from the Brethren denomination, because I hadn't seen those yet. Some of those girls at Chibok, one of them had the last name Stover. Well, Stover Culp was the founder of the one of the mission founders there. Stover called Bible school. I was reading about Yola. I spent time in Yola. I won't have time to go into it now, but I had a story about Creekside game night that came back to me from Yola days, when I wasn't supposed to be gambling because I was part of the Mennonite Central Committee mission, and we gambled at Yola. And that's another story. And you can ask me about that sometime if you want to. But in any case, there are people around this world who are in the dark. It's dark. I passed out for you Milky Way minis, midnight Milky Way minis. That was one of the things I had to take time out to find today if I could on the way up. That's why I was a little bit late. Martin's has them, by the way, in Warsaw. If you want some more. Martin's has them. Paul said this: in this crooked and depraved generation. This is from Philippians chapter 2. You are to be like bright stars in the universe, holding forth the word of life. Imagine that your purpose in life is to share a life-giving presence with anyone with whom you connect in the Spirit of Jesus. Imagine that's the case. How and where are you and I and we going to do that? That is what we will consider more next week in Life-Giving People and the Seek.